After failing to land the Paul George sweepstakes, the Warriors continue to be very active in NBA free agency. One move that almost went under the radar is a player whose former team still to this day does not realize that he was in fact the key to them potentially winning a championship. Hey, what's happening everyone? This is Swish Culture. The Warriors have been involved in so many trades and signings this offseason, I can't even keep up. Now at the end of last season, it seemed like the team was going to do the core three and Curry solid and have them all ride off into the sunset with a roster that isn't very competitive, but more so rewarding the players for the dynasty. Well, that's not going to happen. With Klay Thompson leaving, the pressure is on for Mike Dunleavy Jr. to provide Steph Curry the best roster he can in order to try to win. The roster moves have been crazy and there are some really bright spots with what the team is doing. I'm going to try to cover each of these moves individually and then wrap everything up in a final video that documents all the offseason moves, overall impact, and what we can probably expect from the team this upcoming season. For today's video though, I'd like to talk about one specific signing that I'm really excited to talk about because of how impressive this player is. So if you'd like to hear more, be sure to watch the whole video. Just don't forget to like the video and subscribe to Swish Culture for the most analytical and entertaining NBA content on the planet. Now get ready. You're about to get Now I promise I'll give you guys a video on each player the team signs this season, but I've been having some issues that I'm not used to on the production side, so that will cause some delays. You guys already know around this time of the off-season I'm usually a bit more active, but trust that as a one-man team, I'm getting to that as soon as possible. The most underrated player in the league right now was just picked up by the Golden State Warriors. The Minnesota Timberwolves were kind enough to do a sign-and trade and send him to Golden State. I was actually shocked by this move because I thought the Timberwolves saw how important he was to them winning when they lost the Western Conference Finals. Silly me for thinking that. The player that I'm talking about, Kyle Anderson, aka Slow-Mo, who earned that nickname because he literally provides you with bucketfuls of anxiety whenever he's on a fast break. Yet somehow it works for him. So why do I think Anderson is the most underrated player in the league? Let's use the latest example. In the series versus the Denver Nuggets, Rudy Gobert had to miss a game for the birth of his child. In his stead, Kyle Anderson would go into the starting lineup. This one change absolutely devastated the Nuggets. With Anderson guarding him, the Joker's offense struggled, allowing the Timberwolves to wreak havoc on the prior champions. As Gobert returned, the Timberwolves subsequently lost multiple games. We're talking 3 games in a row to a Denver team that were just down 2-0, with the most dominant win coming when Anderson replaced Gobert in the starting lineup. While the Timberwolves managed to come back in that series, it was much closer than it needed to be. But Kyle Anderson, regardless, would stand out as the single biggest X factor in that series. We've also seen him up close in about 30 games against the Warriors on different teams. His offensive game isn't his strong point, however, he's a menace in transition as he's an elite defender and one of the better finishers in the league. What's also great about Kyle is that he's a role player that knows and understands his own game, what he brings to the team, what the team expects of him, and executes at a high level. He's not a star player and likely won't be coming off the bench to drop 20 points as that's not his game. But if you need a guy who's going to get stops and put an unearthly amount of pressure on the opposing team's offense, that is a POA defender, Kyle Anderson is your guy. Now this obviously has another implication that we'll discuss shortly, but this is an impressive move by Golden State when you dig into the details. Kyle Anderson is basically a cheaper Andrew Wiggins who playmakes instead of scores, and for much less. How much less? The Warriors managed to snag Anderson in a sign-and-trade deal that will see him with Golden State for 3 years and get paid $27 million during that period. This will see him set to become a free agent in 2028 at 34 years old. $9 million a year versus $25 million for Wiggins. This is a big mistake by the Timberwolves to let him go because what he lacks in scoring, he has in playmaking, and considering what he'll do defensively, the Warriors could shed a ton of salary in the form of Andrew Wiggins to get a better and cheaper positional fit. Considering they've been shopping Wiggins, it makes total sense that they would get a guy like Kyle Anderson who's a better natural fit for Golden State. So yes, this means Wiggins is more than likely gone this offseason as soon as the Warriors can find a suitor, as they've aggressively been shopping him. He's been included in every trade scenario the Warriors have considered, meaning the Warriors don't see him as a future starting piece, and with Kyle Anderson on board, there's no reason to keep Wiggins on the bench. Slightly off topic, but consider this. Steph, Pods, Kuminga, and Draymond are almost assuredly locked as the team starters for next season, and Lauri Markkanen is on the horizon for Golden State after failing to land Paul George. Details on this for the next video, but you're starting to see how things are shaping up for the Warriors. Everyone else is expendable as the Warriors engage the Jazz on a trade. But either way, the point is that Slow-Mo is going to be shoring up the Warriors bench alongside another player that I'll cover in another video. That player is DeAnthony Melton. Look out for that video to drop in the next few days. Anderson was actually a first-round pick back in 2014 when he was selected with the 30th overall pick by the San Antonio Spurs. He played until 2018 when he signed with Memphis on a 4-year $37 million deal before going to the Timberwolves on a 2-year $18 million deal. Once that deal expired this offseason, the Timberwolves facilitated a sign-and-trade to enable Anderson to sign with the Warriors. In exchange, the Timberwolves were able to get a future second-round pick swap as well as cash. After losing the Western Conference Finals, however, they're likely considering rebuilding options around their big three of Edwards, Towns, and Gobert. So the real reason the Timberwolves let go of Kyle Anderson? Does anyone remember this little scuffle between Anderson and Gobert? Turns out that scuffle with Rudy Gobert was more serious than we thought. During a timeout in a game versus the Pelicans, Anderson and Gobert initially exchanged unpleasantries, and with no Draymond in the vicinity, the Frenchmen grew a pair and swiftly sucker-punched Anderson. The fight was quickly de-escalated, but considering what happened between Draymond and Jordan Poole, the higher up the totem pole you are, the better the staying power. What I've also realized is that the guy on the lower end of the totem pole usually has a valid point. Case in point, the Timberwolves-Nuggets series where it became obvious that Rudy isn't really getting the job done and Anderson had cleanup duty. Guess Rudy didn't like to hear this. Needless to say, the two had to be permanently separated, as were Poole and Green, and this time, the Warriors are the benefactors. Overall, this is a solid pickup for Golden State. This does move the needle. For last season, in 22.6 minutes, Anderson averaged over 6 points, 3.5 rebounds, and more than 4 assists off the bench, along with incredible defense. The disappointment in his last season, however, was his three-point shooting, as he hit just 23% of his shots from downtown. This was an outlier season, as it's the lowest he's ever shot in his career and shot 41% just the year prior. For comparison, Wiggins shot 36% from 3 last season despite starting out in the teens during the beginning. This isolated poor shooting from distance is no real cause for concern just yet. However, it is imperative that he improves it this year, so I'm expecting a bounce back year in terms of shooting for Kyle. This was also a big reason why his scoring dropped 3 points per game from over 9 points per game to just over 6 points per game in 1 year. A bounce back would make this deal a bargain for Golden State in terms of bringing in quality veterans who can give you good minutes off the bench. The additional wing depth also serves as contingency for potential loss of Moses Moody, whom the Warriors don't see as having the same star potential and upside as Jonathan Kuminga, who along with Steph are likely the two most untouchable pieces on the Golden State roster at the moment. The Warriors are not done yet, however, and are still making moves. A deal is currently in process to sign Buddy Hield, so once that's finalized, we're going to get you guys the scoop, plus all the other signings you've been missing out on, as well as the possible deal on Lauri Markkanen. Who do you think the Warriors should pick up? Post your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on all your notifications so you don't miss any of my latest uploads. Thanks for watching. Till next time, swish!